I'm going to talk about data types in this video. So data types are just, pretty self-explanatory types of data. These are what you will be storing in your variables and things like that. So to begin with, we have number, which we've already dealt with. That's sort of let x equal 5. And this could be sort of health or damage or whatever. This is let this variable equal 5. So this can be a whole number, which is like 5, 50, 500, 5, whatever, but it can also be a decimal place number with a floating point. So it could be 12.05, it could be 1.0004, something like that. So it's you need to be very careful to be rounding numbers if you're doing calculations, because if you have something like you're trying to calculate the percentage of health, and then because of the calculation, you end up with something like 60.5004, then this is what it will display on the screen, which nobody, well, maybe not nobody, but most people don't want a health value that looks like that. You want it to round off and say it's either 60 or 61. So be careful of that. So that's number. There is a string, which essentially just means a string of characters, and a character is just a letter, a number, a symbol, something like that. So a string could be a class name, it could be a character's name, it could be a town location, Woodbury or something, I don't know. Could be an enemy name, Goblin. But it can also be a message. Hello traveler, welcome back. That is a string. You can use either the double quotes or the single quotes for a string. So that works just as well as that does. Works the same way. You can mix them if you want. If you want to use those symbols inside of a string, so you can say "Welcome back, hero." Let message equal. So we create a variable called message, and inside that message will be "Welcome back, hero." So let's alert message, just like we did with the numbers. You can alert variables like that. Welcome back, hero. You see, you are allowed to do that. Just so you can see what happens if you don't. If you try and mix the same one, it breaks. And why did it break? Because the string only goes up to here, and then it stops because you have opened the string and then closed the string, and then this is not the correct coding syntax. This just breaks. So yeah, strings, just text essentially. So yeah, we'll move on first. So then there's Boolean. That could be true or false value. And this is important for when we start doing comparisons, if you want to check if something is equal to something or if something is not equal to something. All those sort of comparisons, that logic. Um, and this doesn't have to be explicitly written out either. You can do something like um, 10 is equal to 10, and we'll get into what this is soon. Yeah, probably shouldn't go into this right now, but you can assign this. So yeah, a Boolean is true or false. We'll come back to that. So the funny thing with data types is they can be reassigned, but you need to make sure if you do reassign a variable from one type to another, you know exactly why you're doing it and it's not by mistake, because then you'll end up with some really annoying bugs to try and figure out. So you can have let x equal 100. So now that x has already been declared, you can reuse x. You can say x equals goblin, and that would work. That's fine. You're completely reassigning this value to another value. So just so that we're sure, we can alert x, let me say it begins with at 100 and then it turns into goblin. So no errors, the code allows that, but you can probably see why you may end up with some funky bugs down the line if you mistakenly reassign a value to something else. Now can't, what we can do, but what we shouldn't do, or what will give interesting results, is if you have a name, um, night, and then you have a number. What happens if we try and mix those two? Let x equal player name plus health. Oh, we need to alert this as well so we can actually see. So we're adding night to 50. Will it break? Will it cause an error? No. It allows it, but it changes the number into a string. And that means something pretty important. You can't add a string to a number. That sounds pretty self-explanatory, but what if this isn't such a cut and dry example? What if you have 10? Should this work? 1050. So why? Why does it do that? It's because it's still a string. We have the quotes around it, which means this is a string, not a number. So when we try and add these, it says, I have a string here. Let's turn this number into a string. So that's why we end up with 1050 instead of 60. And just for proof, I guess, you remove the quotes and it becomes a number, 10 plus 50, and we get 60. So that's the importance of data types, making sure we know what is where. And I guess the important message there is try and have clear variable names. If you are catching an actor's health, don't just call it X. Don't say, well, there's the health. We would say actor health equals this. And then just at a glance, you can tell exactly what this is later on if you're saying, do something else, blah, 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 actor health plus 50 or 40. Now it's not just X. What's X? What do you mean X plus 40? It's actor health plus 40. You know exactly what this is doing. Okay. So the next data type is undefined. This is if something just simply doesn't exist. So if you are trying to get a value from somewhere and it doesn't exist, it will return undefined. And that can be a good way for doing your comparisons later on, which we'll get more into. You say if something just doesn't exist, then we can create it. But if something does exist, we can just use it. But yeah, more on that later. And then the last one I want to do right now, there are more, but this is the last one I want to do right now. It's null. This tends to be if something maybe does exist, but it doesn't have anything in it. So it could be a value that's created and then you have deleted that value or something. That might return null. But undefined and null, a lot of the time they can go hand in hand when you're doing comparisons. You can simply check if something is undefined or null, and then, yeah. But don't get too bogged down in that right now. We will get to better examples for all this stuff, and we will get to more sort of RPG Maker involved examples as well. It's just important to get some of these fundamentals down early on, and then we can start building upon it with the more fun stuff.